So verses 81 through 84, chapter 4 of Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There is plenitude of bliss in the hearts of the great yogis who remain in samadhi through nada, anusandhana, or exploration of nada, which is unequaled and beyond any description, known by the one and only Gurunath. Having closed the ears with the hands, the muni should listen to the inner sound with the mind steady on that, and this state of stillness is achieved through sustained listening to the nada. Awareness of the external sound diminishes. Thus, the yogi overcomes mental turbulence within 15 days and feels the pleasure. When he first begins to hear sounds during practice, there are various prominent nadas, but with prolonged practice, the subtlest of subtleties become audible. When practicing Shanmukhi mudra and perceiving the inner sound, you must listen to it in such a way as if listening for another sound within or beyond that sound. Keep searching for finer and subtler sounds. The 4 stages of Vakari, etc., are not different from Kundalini Shakti. Vakari sound in the form of the mantra captivates the gross mind and moves the consciousness beyond the Swayambhula Lingam, or gross physical body. In the form of Madhyama Sabda, in the heart, consciousness is awakened through Banalingam, or the subtle body. Kundalini Shakti in the form of Pashyanti Nada captivates the causal body, or Intara Lingam. It then proceeds to Parabindu and Paranada. In the initial stage of practice, there is awareness of the external sounds and movements, but eventually this awareness drops away and only the nada remains. Just as in the dream state, the external sounds and movements are not perceived. So is the mind withdrawn while consciously listening to nada. When the mind is absorbed in nada, there are no vrittis. Mind is still like a crystal clear pool of water. The reflection seen inside is the nada. Swatmarama asserts that once the nada is perceived, then sustained listening for 15 days will pacify the mind and give the pleasure of perfect absorption. This is for the individual to verify. Sound exists in the form of vibrations, which are varying frequencies. In fact, the brain is constantly emitting hundreds of vibrations every second. The more powerful your consciousness is, the greater the vibrations emanating from your brain will be. These vibrations are of varying intensity and frequency according to the individual. Just as there are spectra of electromagnetic and radio waves, etc., similarly, there is a whole range of subtle sound waves which travel beyond the brain and which can be realized within the brain itself. In the tradition of Tantra, knowledge of the structure and combination of gross and subtle sounds is known as mantra shastra, and is considered to be very important. In fact, it has been said many times that without mantra, there is no Tantra. According to both Vedas and the Bible, the seed out of which gross manifestations of the material universe is emerging is a matrix of eternal sound. Mantra exists as energy in the form of gross and subtle sounds. Different dimensions of nada have been perceived and passed on by great yogis, rishis, and munis in the form of mantras. Mantras can bring about every kind of outcome and result. Inner knowledge of mantra is known as mantra siddhi, which confers to the power to modify and influence the process of creation and destruction of the material world from the causal dimension. However, it must be remembered that manifestation of and attachment to such psychic powers or siddhis is a major barrier to spiritual realization. Mantra is to be utilized for spiritual evolution and must be received from a guru. In the practice of Nada Yoga, these inner sounds are used as a pathway to Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Verse 85 to 90. The first fruits are the sound of the ocean, the clouds, the kettle drum, and jar drum. In the middle stage, the shanka, gong, or horn. Now, reaching the inner point of conclusion are the tinkling of bells, flutes, veena, and humming of bees. Thus, the various nadas are produced and heard from the middle of the body. Even when the sounds of clouds and the kettle drum are heard, attention should be kept on even subtler nada. Though the attention may go from the deep to the subtle or subtle to deep, the mind should not move to various things other than the sound. Whatever nada the mind initially adheres to, it becomes perfectly still in that and dissolves with it. Just as a bee drinking honey is unconcerned about the fragrance, the mind engaged in nada is not craving for sensual objects. In nada yoga, various frequencies of sound are perceived. When you utter a word verbally, its frequency is within limited range of your auditory capacity, and so your ears can hear it. However, when you hear sounds in the depth of meditations, its frequencies are far higher and more rapid than those of external audible sound. In fact, in scientific investigations of mental telepathy between two people, it became evident that the higher the frequency of sound, the lower the audible volume. The greater the volume of sound, the lesser the frequency. When you are talking to someone, the volume of sound increases and therefore it has a lower frequency. However, if you can increase the momentum of frequency, either by mechanical, mental, or psychological devices, then sound travels through a different field altogether and can be heard at a greater distance. Various energy fields are known to modern science: electromagnetic fields, radioactive fields, etc. If the chakras can be influenced so that the sound gains a certain momentum of frequency, it can also travel through what are called psychic fields. In the symbolism of each chakra, there is a bija mantra in the center: Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham, Om. This means that every chakra has a confluent sound base. Just as the body is composed of bone, marrow, blood, flesh, muscles, mucus, etc., similarly, a chakra is constituted of sound, symbol, and light. Hence, when the sound attains a certain momentum of frequency, it affects the chakras. It is therefore a fact that Nada Yoga is also an instrument in the awakening of Kundalini. When Kundalini rises, the sounds are deep, monotone vibrations, like waves pounding on the shore, the clap of thunder and beating of various types of bass drums. Or one might describe the sound and sensation of a jet plane or rocket taking off. This occurs in the Aramba or Gata stages. In the middle stage, Paracharya, higher frequencies are expected, but these are still loud and penetrating, those which grip the body like a gong or horn. The sounds heard might be described as a bassoon or organ, depending on one's cultural background and the types of sound one has previously experienced. In the last stage of consummation or nishpati, melodious, high-pitched, and reverberating sounds occur, something like a piano, harp, or harpsichord. The Hatha Ratnavali explains, in the beginning of the practice, loud and voluminous sounds of various types are heard. As the practice progresses, sharper and subtler sounds are heard. In this book, Shakti Vilas, Swami Muktananda Paramahasama describes different kinds of nadas he has experienced, which not only resemble the ocean, but also thunder, drums, conch, bells, buzzing of insects, the murmur of a brook, the rattle of a fast-moving train, the drone of an airplane, the crackle of a funeral pyre, full-throated singing of the divine name by a large group by large groups of devotees, the cries of peacocks and the songs of cuckoos. He states that while hearing the nada, his mind would converge upon its source. He witnessed the center which emits divine spark when elevated by nada, and all his senses were drawn toward it. Verse 91 to 93. By the sharp goad of nada, the mind, which is like a furious elephant roaming in the garden of the senses, is controlled. When the mind ceases to be fickle and is uniting by fixing it in nada, it becomes immobile like a wingless bird. One who desires complete dominion of yoga should thus explore the nada with an attentive mind and abandon all thoughts. Just as audible sound frequencies influence the brain, mind, and body, the subtler frequencies affect their underlying layers. When you listen to music, it arouses different emotions and states of the mind and affects different areas and centers of the body. In fact, music therapy for sick and disturbed people should not be overlooked. Sound is the most powerful tool in pacifying the restless mind. Sound exerts an influence upon the entire brain, body, and mind of an individual who has come into manifestation because both are an aspect of Shakti. In fact, this Shakti is the matrix which underlies the entire phenomenal world. The mind, under the sway of the senses, is likened to a raging elephant confined within a small garden. Nada, as the vehicle of Shakti, is then likened to a goad because it draws and prods it towards internal absorption and union with its source. Just as music can calm and relax the mind, making one completely forget problems and worries, so absorption in the subtle nada brings forgetfulness of the external world. Verses 94 to 99. Nada is like the net which snares the deer, mind, inside. It is also like the hunter who slays the deer, mind, inside. It is like the bolt locking a horse inside, for one who is self-controlled. The yogi must therefore meditate regularly upon the nada. Just as liquid mercury is solidified by sulfur, so mind is bound by nada and freed from restlessness. Then one moves unsupported in void. Hearing the nada, mind, which is like a serpent within, becomes captivated and oblivious to all else, not moving anywhere else. As fire burns wood and both subside together, so the mind which moves the nada is absorbed in it. Just as a deer attracted by the sound of bells is easily killed by an expert archer, so is the mind silenced by an adept in nada yoga. Whatever process is adopted to attain a state of higher consciousness, it has to be one which can totally absorb and preoccupy the mind. Identification with the gross aspect of existence has to be forgotten or transcended for a period of time. Expansion of mundane consciousness has to be the motivation for the practice. Otherwise, it is like expecting to fly to the moon with the whole contents of your house. Similarly, you cannot expect to attain higher states of consciousness with the gross mind. Some things have to be left behind on your journey, such as empirical awareness. Conscious mind is experienced when the mind is attracted to external objects which appear separate from yourself or your ego. That mind is in a continuous state of hypnosis. It is hypnotized by the external objects. This hypnosis has to become an internal process so that the mind is now hypnotized by the internal object and oblivious to the mundane external reality. When there is a total concentration upon the internal object, then there is absorption of mind. The nada heard in meditation easily captivates the mind. Once perceived, it exerts a magnetic force upon the functioning mind. At one time, Swami Muktananda was unable to sleep for 14 consecutive nights because the experience of nada and sleep are incompatible. His body would respond with a mildly painful quiver to whatever variety of nada he heard. During this phase of heavenly music, a yogi acquires the art of dancing. He would even hear the nada while working, moving, eating, and when he felt angry, the nada became intensive. Some methods of yoga advise renunciation of the material world to detach the mind from its externalizing tendency. However, Hatha yoga approaches from a different point of view. Mind is energy. The energy appears as sound. If the consciousness can become aware of that sound, it will realize its own nature because ultimately the two forces cannot be kept separate from each other. Verse 100. One hears the sound of the unstruck resonance, anahata shabna. The quasitance of that sound is the supreme object consciousness. The mind becomes one with the object of knowledge and it dissolves therein. That is the supreme state of Vishnu, Sthiti. When you are concentrating, there is awareness of that object, awareness of the process of concentration, and awareness of yourself who is concentrating. When both the awareness that there is nada and the sound of the nada dissolves into the vibration of the nada alone exists. When through constant practice, one's concentration becomes objectless, then being divested of merits and demerits, one attains the state of complete dissolution of the absolute through the dissolution of the object on the concentration, but not before then. Avadhuta Gita. Some say Vishnu is the highest state and everything manifests from him. Even Brahma, the creator, manifested from his navel. Others maintain Shiva or Brahman as the originator, with the three Shaktis and the Trinity having originated from there. Nada is a state of creative movement and is therefore not the final state of absolute dissolution or pralaya. According to Kashmir Shaivism, nada is the continuum of the creative descent. When it condenses into a dynamic point, it is Bindu. From these two, nada and Bindu, manifestation arises, which is beyond the differentiation of time, space, subject, and object. When the two poles become one, the nada is heard. The Avhuta Gita further states, he attains to the supreme eternal self, from whose essence the universe of animate and inanimate objects is born, in whom it rests and in whom it dissolves, even as foam and bubbles are born of the transformation of water. Verse 101 and 102. The conception of Akasha, the substantrum of sound, exists as long as the sound is heard. The soundless, which is the supreme reality, is called the supreme Atma. Whatever is heard of the nature of the mystical nada is indeed Shakti, that in which all the elements, Panchatattva, find dissolution. That is the formless being, the Supreme Lord Parameshwara. Thus ends the inquiry into nada. Each of the 5 elements, tattvas or mahabhutas, has a particular quality. Sound is the quality of Akesha tattva, the finest and subtlest of the 5 elements. As long as there is consciousness of the existence of sound, or even that you are sound itself, dissolution into the highest state has not yet been attained. In Atma, there is no is or is not. It cannot be said that there is or is not sound. We think now that we are not in Atma. We are, but awareness of that state is not there. It is something like an old man saying that he was never a child just because he cannot remember it. Individual existence, like waves on the ocean, seem to be separate, but nevertheless is part of the whole. There are 2 schools of Advaita thought. One holds that there is only consciousness and that Shakti exists only as Maya illusion. Chit, the supreme reality, Brahma or Atma, is without action or change, but is pure jnana or knowledge. Prakesha. Therefore, the universe is mithya or unreal. However, the other school maintains that Chit is both the consciousness and the creative potential. The display of the universe is the display of the creative principle. Therefore, creation is real. Whichever may be true, in the final state of Atma, there is completeness. Atma is known according to its attributes as Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. The Drisya Viveka explains the attributes of existence, consciousness, and bliss are equally present in the ether, air, fire, water, and earth elements, as well as in gods, animals, and men, etc. Only names and forms make one differ from that other. I am existence, consciousness, bliss, unattached, self-illumined, and free from duality. This is known as Savikapa Samadhi, associated with sound, object. Supraconsciousness or Atma is the state where consciousness pervades even the potential force of Shakti. In that state, Shakti can be said to be the silent bystander. In creation, Shakti is active and consciousness can be said to be the silent bystander. Therefore, existence, consciousness, bliss is present even in the tattvas. In dissolution, the tattvas subside into consciousness. He attains the supreme eternal self, who is devoid of manifoldness, oneness, many and oneness, and otherness, who is devoid of minuteness, length and largeness, and nothingness, who is devoid of knowledge and knowableness and sameness. Avadhuta Gita. I think I will pause there. I don't think we got too much more to go in this book so far. Yeah, we got like 10 more pages. Oh, you're on mute, Sue.
Okay. So this seems to be this is like, you know, if you go to a concert and you hear a symphony and there's all different sorts of things happening in the symphony pulling it together, but at the end, very often there's this great swell of energy and music. It could be either loud or it could be, you know, more tempered sound that pulls it all together and says, look, this is where we were heading. This is where we're heading to. So this is like, you know, she's translating stuff that says, once you get here, this is what it's like. You're devoid of, or you are here, etc. And this has been repeated for like the past 25 pages or so in different ways. And it's sort of exciting. It's yeah, anyway, I all of a sudden I'm kind of realizing what this is.
Yeah.
At least intellectually, you know, I'm realizing what it is.
Actually, I was reading. Oh, let me get my book. And so I was thinking the same thing of like a symphony or like. I know nada isn't the sound, but I think of nada as like the sound like we hear like on a very the only nada I can only ever experience in yoga was when Callie performed with her husband for us in yoga teacher training. We were all in the back room of Revolution Yoga and we were like right next to each other, like everyone, and it was like super cozy, and they came in with all their instruments and all we had to do was lie on the floor and do nothing and just experience. Like there was no thinking involved, and they just plucked away at their chords and all the different instruments. I don't even know the names of them. Like that's how little you need to know to experience. And they were a unique type of instruments, unique to me at least. And they just played, maybe for 2 hours. It could have been longer. I don't remember exactly. I just remember that feeling was something I had never experienced before, because it wasn't like you were like, "Oh, that's the sound of a violin," or "This is the sound of a horn," or "This is the sound of that." You didn't know
Uh,
what the sounds were coming from. Your eyes were closed, the room was dim, and you just
mm,
and, like, they knew what they were doing, so they could pluck away at different, and when I say pluck, it might not have been, like, actually plucking. I meant, like, they could create these sounds, and the frequencies, you could hear them get louder and softer and like high pitched, and the volume,
mhm.
like everything was tied together. I mean, and you could feel the energy, and it wasn't even just emotion, you could feel the energy in your body. And there were some sounds where like I wanted to cry, and there were some sounds that
Mhm.
I was so relaxed at. So that, and so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, because you've practiced with Callie before. But she also, her sound healing had this similar effect to me, where it was the same type of idea. She's using the Nada yoga to create these vibrations.
Yeah, it is. Dominica, if you ever have an opportunity to take anything with Ellie, you should. It's because it's she has a particular gift in using her voice and using music of all different sorts. So does her husband, but I've done more directly with Callie than with the two of them, although I've done stuff with them. It is just such a powerful thing. I mean, they seem, since your yoga training, Pam, they've produced 3 kids, and so they're pretty busy now.
Yeah.
I so miss that because there's something that's just, it's like it clicks in right away. It is like there is, if you lie there or sit there and you are receptive to, just sort of open up, just sort of wait, it reaches in and grabs you right away. Or I like music, so maybe it's my brain, who knows? But
Yeah.
it works. One other time, and this reminds me, how Amanda talks about times where you sort of glimpse a little bit of what it means to really be aware, and it happens by accident because of something you see or hear or something you're doing or something quite wonderful that happens. It's temporary. You don't stay there. You can't re-access it so readily. But one of my friends who is not affiliated with Revolution, but she's a yoga teacher. She also is trained in Reiki, and she's also someone who's worked with very frequently with helping people who are terminally ill make that passage, and their relatives make that passage. So uh, once she came and she did a combination of yoga, nidra, and Reiki with me. And she's also a musician and a singer. And she used some kind of combination of bells. And it was as if I had just started meditating, and what usually would take me like 45 minutes of really hard work to maybe get a slight buzz at the top of my head, that kind of thing. Man, she had me there inside of 1 minute, ringing them bells and humming whatever she was humming and hovering her hands. And it was sort of like one of those things that Amanda talks about, like, well, you got a glimpse. It's temporary. Now you know what it could be. But it was quite wonderful. So sound, this whole concentration on sound and on mantras
So
is good.
that's that's what I was that's kind of where I think I was like, how we say we're meditating but really we're concentrating.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so, and sometimes we're not even concentrating. Sometimes we're even below that. Like sometimes our mind, like we're still not doing it. But I feel like with nada, like we can practice it on sound, where sound becomes like an element, and then nada is something more. And because like we both practice with Callie, and maybe you've experienced nada somewhere and you got a glimpse of it, but that's what we're trying to replicate. And like even, and sound is so important for us humans. Like we forget the power of music. Like wake up on the wrong side of the bed, put a good song on, your whole day will change. Like it's that easy. I took Amanda's yoga class last night and I was texting with her about something else before her class. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm so busy at work, but I'm like, I really need to give myself a break. I was debating taking that one or the evening class, but I'm like, I need a break now or I'm not going to make it to the evening.
Yeah.
So I paused and I just like practiced right here because it was virtual. And I haven't done this too much at home, but I'm like, I couldn't get out of my head. The monitor was right there, still checking work email while I'm practicing. So I was like, I put a playlist on my phone and it really helps me concentrate. And so that practice on sound becomes like a pointed concentration instead of
Hmm.
it being like a physical thing. It becomes the sound, like instead of it being like a sight sense, it becomes a sound sense.
Yep.
And
You
I
know
could,
how we read, I don't know how many slokas back, but somewhere back, we read about focusing on the light from a candle
yeah,
to, to help with, focus. It's focus concentration. It's not quite meditation, but it helps you to train to focus. I agree with you. Sometimes sound can be just like looking at that little light from a candle, and it can be very useful. And it's like yet another tool. But
I
here
think,
they're talking about nada as being the essence of another manifestation of the essence of, you know, something that is beyond the individual, which is quite powerful.
yeah.
Maybe I misunderstood the reading. I thought a sound that comes internally to them, or is it external?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
And so what Pam was saying before is there is a difference between focus concentration, which is basically, because I'm nowhere near real meditation, but if I work at it, I can get focus concentration. And so focus concentration is as if I listen to a Kali, or I play something that helps me to focus. And it might get me to the point where there's the nada, the internal resonance, the internal sound that has, and she describes it so nicely. All those different kinds of vibrations, and she talked about the singing bees and whatever else, but it's internal.
Right.
There are
Okay.
bees singing outside your ear. You're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
different types of the nada too. So once you start experiencing it, then I think she had went over the different levels of there was like 4 types or something.
yeah, it's another list.
Yeah, like this could be like a whole decade's worth of coursework and we're like jamming in 6 months of reading this book. But it's nice because now we can spiral out of this and see everyone can study whatever direction they want to go. But like I think about when I go to the beach, I love being at the beach, and I can be at the beach on a warm, sunny summer day or off season. Like I don't care when I go, and it is the most serenity place I could be because the sound of the ocean connects with
Yeah.
me, something in me. And I think all of us react to different frequencies differently too. And this is why you like that song and we like this type of music and this sits with me and I can't stand that. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I forget why, but like I have a house in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I don't know what it is about being down there that it just brings me so much happiness. And I grew up here on Long Island and I'm in Lynbrook now. I grew up out east near MacArthur Airport. So we've talked about this before. I've always been in a flight and I'm sure you feel this, Domenica, where you live too. We're very busy on Long Island. It's never quiet. There's
Yeah.
always a plane going. There's always a train going. So like it's really hard for me to experience this inner sound because there's so much external pollution creating energy into my body. The sound of that stupid lawnmower, I mean, it's nonstop around here.
Yeah.
So like, but the practicing this every morning has allowed me to really tune out that lawnmower because I acknowledged it. I'm like, it bothers me, but now I don't let it bother me anymore. I mean, it is winter, so we don't hear it as much. We'll see what happens when spring comes around.
Yeah.
But I think that too is like part of this practice. Like, how can we like this book was written, these people probably lived in a forest somewhere and they didn't have all this external noises. But I guess it's not even that. It's like creating the nada regardless of all of that, right? Like it's like experiencing it in this world regardless of everything else that's going on. And that's where you separate the sound from the nada, I think. But
Sounds good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So when I practice nada yoga, it's more, and like I like how like I always forget to practice with my mantra, and I was creating for 4 months last year. I created like a monthly mantra so that when I was taking a class or when I was getting stuck on something, I could very easily come back to that mantra. I didn't have to like create one in the moment, but I haven't done one for January, so I need to make one for myself. And it's simple. It was like, I am hopeful, I am creative, I am something. Like it's just like an I am something, and that's my mantra for the month. But I think what they also are talking about the more powerful scripted Sanskrit mantras, and there's tons of them that you can work with. And you can find some on Spotify even. And Stu, I was thinking about that chakra meditation that you did. I was wondering if you had done it again, but maybe this week I'll do it again, because that chakra had the bija mantras in it, I think, for each chakra.
It did. It's because it's a relatively short meditation, a 20-minute meditation. His longer version of that is, which is closer to like 40 minutes, I guess, or 41 minutes. Anyways, his longer version makes the mantras that go with each of the 7 chakras a little clearer, and that I got to dig that up again. I keep on saying that, but I haven't done it and listened to it, because it'll bring me back to the mantras that go with each of the chakras. And the shorter one does it, but it doesn't. It skips. I swear it skips a couple of them. Either that or I slept right through it.
All right. Well, I can listen to it again sometime this week. I don't know if today, but
Yeah.
And I will say though, I saw on the schedule for Rev, Amanda has her attention setting Sankalpa scheduled for Sunday from 2 to 4. And there she goes over each chakra, and we set intention for each one, and she goes over the bija mantra for each one, and we
she does the manifestation of the shapes and the colors and the bija mantras.
Yeah, so it's interesting. All right, we should move into breath and do some. Oh, but I wanted to share this. I'm reading a Nicholas Sparks book, one of his old ones that I had never read, that snuck through. And it's fiction. Like it's like chick lit fiction. You never really know where you're gonna find inspiration. And it's this journalist, he's trying to uncover like a fictitious or a rumorous ghost story in the cemetery. And so this older woman is talking to him, and she said, one day, and she's saying to him that she has these divine powers, and he doesn't believe her. And she says, one day you're going to learn something that you can't explain with science. And when that happens, your life's going to change in ways you can't imagine. And I thought of this morning circle, because how many times are we like, but there's no, like, it is science, but there isn't science. We don't understand it, but we can experience it anyway. I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
There's on Netflix. I don't know if you all have Netflix, but there's a meditation kind of, I guess it's a little series, and they did some research and they talk about the science behind it.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, even without science, I've been doing it. It'll be, I guess it's been 10 months now that I've been doing it. And it's definitely, it's something people have told me to do, and I never did it. Until you start doing it, you don't realize the benefits of it.
Right.
You don't do it.
I since I'm new to it, and I think I told you when I first started that I really only done like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes at a time.
Mhm.
But I find myself moving a lot in it, like stretching certain parts of my body. Um, I'm wondering if that goes away at some point, if it's just me being kind of a little bit restless.
It could be maybe you start out and say, "I'm gonna move for 5 minutes," and, like, make it your intention, and then be like, "After the 5 minutes, I am not moving for 5 minutes," and you just or
Yeah.
maybe you say 3 minutes, like, and you have to have some sort of structure to yourself, I think. You don't have to be super strict or mean to yourself, but I've been noticing at the end of my 20-minute meditations, my body's feeling it coming, and like I give myself a few minutes to stretch out my neck. So I don't know if it ever goes away, because here I am 10 months later and all of a sudden movement is coming into the practice. So,
Yeah.
but I do think we stir things up in our meditation. And so that if your body's craving a movement, unless your intention is to not move for whatever reason, then why not let it move? I don't know. I'm
My,
a little bit
my,
more flexible in my meditation.
yeah. I mean, my mind is silent. It's just like I want to stretch this, or I want to move here, or I want to lay down, and then I want to sit up.
Well, one of the things is that's true is that if there are 8 limbs of yoga, one of the limbs is asana, which is moving and practicing certain postures that help you to be able to sit still if that's the way you want to do your meditation. And getting into a comfortable position and sitting still ultimately seems to be what everybody recommends for doing meditation. So I agree with Pam. There's nothing wrong with moving if you feel like you have to. In fact, if you get uncomfortable because you're not moving, you are moving so far away from being able to concentrate because your body is saying no, no, no. And so, but that's one reason to do a yoga practice, because it does help you to sit there and meditate. I don't know. Right, Pam? I mean,
No, I totally agree. Like sometimes it's easier to move. Like I think whatever your intention is going to be and you'll follow it, then that's part of the meditation. Like it's part
mhm.
that's part of being in the present. But if you're moving and you're like don't even realize you're moving, and you're moving like because you can't sit still and not because your body wants to move, like there's a difference there. And
Right.
untangling that is part of the concentration practice, and it's part of being in the present. And I think you'll start seeing that happen outside of just sitting here. Like you'll see it in the real world. Yeah.
Well, this is the real world, but okay.
No, I mean like when you're like doing things.
There. Yes.
And then I know we really have to start breath, but like what Sue was saying earlier about Amanda explaining to us, just capturing these glimpses of like we concentrate for 20 minutes, maybe we get 1 second of meditation in there, or like we experience this the sound and nada, maybe just to get like one little glimpse of it. So when we're meditating here for 20 minutes, we're really practicing meditating for a whole entire day through through moving through our daily activities, so that when you're doing the dishes, you're doing the dishes and you're not thinking about the next thing you're doing. And when you're reading your silly book, you're letting yourself read the silly book and not beating yourself up that you should be doing something else. And so when you're meditating and you're moving, let yourself move and let yourself like, this is what I want to do right now. And this is how I approach meditation. So that's what I meant by like the real world. So that if you're doing a cat cow neck stretch as part of your 5-minute meditation, do it if that's really what you want to do, but don't do it and beat yourself up that you're not sitting still.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, because the thing you just mentioned, like, what if I'm taking a break and I'm like, I really shouldn't be taking a break right now. I should be working. Or I'm doing the dishes. I'm like, I gotta hurry up because I gotta get back to work or do this or do that. Yeah. No, it's and it's harder because like life is now integrated with work so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So I do believe that this practice does that, because I see it working in my own life. And Brene Brown says it best in one of her books. I can't remember which one, but she says to write yourself permit. I think it's the gifts of imperfection, but she says to write yourself a permission slip. Like if you want to watch your Netflix show and you need to binge 2 hours of TV, do it. If it's going to allow you to go do the rest of your day, do it, or do 20 minutes, whatever it is. Like, write yourself a permission slip and let yourself be present in whatever you're choosing to do every day, all day long. And that becomes the meditation.
Yeah, that
It's
makes a
not
lot
about
of sense.
what?
I said that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not about living life with nothing in our brain. This isn't going to happen, especially with the planes flying around. I hear them now.
Oh, yeah.
It's about creating this like calmer, sattvic life among the crazy.
Yep.
All right. So let's sit up nice and tall. We'll do a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing. If we want to, I mean, I know we're tight on time, but I feel like because we talked about bumblebee, we'll do some bumblebee breath. Create the humming sound internally, and then we'll move into meditation. If you need to set your own timer today and drop early or set a different time, it's totally fine. Just taking a few rounds of breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Bringing right hand over to your nose. You'll close right nostril with right thumb. Inhale through your left. Close left with your ring finger. Exhale through right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. 3 more rounds like that on your own breath. If you have the retention and locks in your practice and you want to add it, go for it. When you're done, you'll exhale out through the left nostril, taking your time. You can keep on with the alternate nostril breathing if that's for you. Otherwise, if you want to move into your bumblebee breath, you'll take your thumbs to close your ears and your pointer and middle finger to close the eyes. You can fold the ring and pinky into the palm of your hand, or you can place them on the face. We'll breathe in and out through the nose, but as we exhale, we'll create a humming sound at the back of the throat, and it'll sound like a bumblebee. And you'll exhale for as long as you can, and you'll take a new breath in and create the sound again. You can do that for 3 to 5 rounds. The breath is going to sound like a bumblebee, and you'll feel it inside. I'm going to set the timer. Bringing hands to heart. Namaste.